We're in Hollywood.
Hollywood, baby. What's your dream?
My dream is to use music and expression to raise the vibration and help people understand their true, authentic selves.
That's beautiful.
And your dream?
My dream is for people to realize and understand that they are already loved.
So, hello, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. This is a pleasure for me to be here.
Aww.
Divine masculinity, that's the topic of the day that we're going to cover. Inspired by so much.
Yeah. Come on.
There's a lot of toxic masculinity talk in the world right now, and it's very important. And I need to give some room for those divine masculinity men out there and the women that appreciate that too, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I feel like right now in our society with Me Too and with women trying to find their voice, that in that journey that there has been this shame, this dark cloud that has overshadowed masculinity, which I believe is a beautiful gift to the world, to women. I think that, if you had to put me on this planet and you said, listen, there's going to be nothing but a bunch of vaginas running around, I'd be like, get me off that planet. There's nothing fun about that. But men interject so much into our world and our society, and what a man is able to do for a woman's heart, a woman can never do. And so I really, in this heated time in our society, I feel like men now more than ever need to hear the message that they are wanted, that they are loved, that they are needed, that they have what it takes, that they cannot be replaced. And I think that that's very poignant for men's hearts right now more than ever.
Yeah. It's been very, very, very important for breaking old paradigms and being part of the shift that's going on, that everybody is speaking out against, patriarchal ways that are just so deeply ingrained, and bringing light to horrible, toxic things that men have done to women. And we can't forget that men do this to other men too. All kinds of men do this to all kinds of men. There's many kinds of men. And when a man is put against his own will, his own power, it really mess with him. And if he's in a world where he's so available to be with the divine feminine, but feeling like he's not allowed to be the man that he is because of shame, it's a very difficult place to be. It's a very silent place to be. So we're bringing a voice to that. Yeah. Well, we've come together because this book right here, in a sense, you could say, this is The Alabaster Girl by Zan Perrion.
Yes.
So I found Arica online interviewing Zan, and just next thing you know, I found myself going to be in town, so I reached out and I was like, well, can we talk about some stuff on camera?
Yeah.
Here we are.
Yeah, here we are.
Yeah,
I think more than ever, men, their voices have been silenced when it comes to what you're speaking of this divine masculinity. When we say the word divine, there is a purity that comes with divinity. There is a holiness. There's a set apart. There's the essence of love that is wrapped up in divine. And I feel like all of those things that embody that word divine, men have almost been castrated from. Men grow up as boys and they get told, if something happens, suck it up, you're a man, don't talk about it, don't do this, don't. And there are all these things that make up who we are, that men have had castrated from their voices, from their hearts, from their emotions. And so now you have men showing up and going what are my emotions? I don't even know what I'm feeling, because they've been so conditioned that is a woman's thing, and that you as a man have no right to that. And when we tell men that, when we tell children that, what we are essentially doing is cutting men's voices off. We're strangling their throats, but then we're putting a demand on them to show up.
Well, let's define masculinity in a sense, because in today's age too, that's very sensitive. What is masculinity? What is femininity? Who is allowed to have the traits? Well, if we're talking about divinity, nature with a capital N, we're all a oneness, but we're all in duality right now at least.
Right.
So we have it all of us have it all. And there's ratios that we all contain in our own unique individual designs. But yeah, masculine traits, like, is it really true that being emotional is not masculine? I don't think so, right?
Yeah.
So what is?
I think that we possess, I as a woman, you as a man, I possess male qualities. I possess male traits, as I do feminine ones. Obviously my feminine ones, or not obviously, but my feminine ones are more developed. However, I still have that masculine side of me. I feel like men, same thing. Men have that feminine side, which is the part that is emotional, but then they also have that masculine side that's the primal, that's the hunter that needs to take risks, that needs to pursue a woman. And I think that there are differences, but we can embody both.
I'm feeling like maybe the masculine emotional, if you're talking about these terms of masculine, feminine, maybe it's more like grounded, raw emotion.
Right.
That has this like warrior spirit to it.
Yes. Oh, that's a beautiful way to put it.
Rather than like a motherly emotion that can get very heightened in a sense. Because
such a great explanation. Yeah. I really love that.
Have you heard of Carl Jung's The Anima and the Animus?
I have not.
Oh, this is exactly it. It's
okay.
like men have an anima, which is their inner feminine, and women have the animus, which is their inner masculine.
Okay.
And when it's balanced, it makes the complete man or the complete woman.
Oh, beautiful.
And when it's imbalanced, it could lead to, well, an anima or animus possession is like the terms. And that leads to, mental disharmony and acting out in the world in ways that are not, good for the self or those around.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very interesting topic, which, psychological, but also can get philosophical, maybe spiritual if you're into it. If there was something you could say to the whole world right now, what would it be?
There's something I could say to the whole world. I would say, first and foremost, you need to know that you are loved. And that whatever your past, whatever your circumstances that have indicated to you that you were unlovable, that you were not loved, that unfortunately that those circumstances were a misrepresentative of the fact of that you as a person are made from divine, and that you are already a loved being. Because the reason why I feel like that is so important, and it can sound so soft and so woo-woo and so intangible, but it is the most important thing that we as human beings need to know. Hence why we talk about self-love, hence why we go on these journeys to find love, because it is the essence of who we are, and we forget. We forget who we are. We forget that we are made from love, and that we are loved and we are loved. And when I see this divide right now between masculinity and femininity, and when we talk about toxicity and all these things, essentially what we are all trying to do is we are trying to fight for our identity of where do I belong, where is my voice, where are my rights. And essentially we need to know more than anything that in that sense of searching for identity, that love is our identity. And when we start from that foundation, when a person knows that they are loved, that person is the most free person you will ever witness. And many people are on the journey of searching for something that they already have. Don't you know that you are already loved right where you are in this very moment? That you are already loved. You have nothing to prove, because love has already proved itself to you. You have to receive it. You have to be in a position to be open to it.
It's all around you.
Yeah.
Wow.
It truly is. We say that and we write songs about it, but it truly is. If you come from an open posture, you will see gestures from divine, you will see gestures from people all over. It's like, I can be having a hard day and I'll be sitting at my office and all of a sudden a little sparrow just flies in the tree. It makes me chuckle. It touches my heart. In that moment, that is divine saying to me, you are not alone in this moment. You are not alone in your frustration. You are loved in this very moment.
Yeah, the world is always sending us signs. And the more open we are to it, it's just like, oh, here you go. Here's another gift. Here's another gift.
Yeah.
And it's always trying to poke and be like, there's something here showing you the way. But when you're really open to it, I really believe the gifts are abundant and the receiving, not that it's always going to be easy, not that it's always going to feel good or make sense, but that'll get you there. A big part of this toxic masculinity, since I mentioned the work of Carl Jung before, is this concept of the shadow. It's just these imbalances that go so deep into the subconscious and unconscious. Trauma creates these, mostly that's like what creates it, but trauma can be a really, really horrible thing, abusive situations, or it could be a little micro trauma thing from childhood. Everybody's experienced it. And then we lock these things away, and I guess it's just maybe has been the role of men in the world from, ancient times. We don't know about maybe older, societies where women actually were more matriarchal, but in this modern Western society, it's like all these very powerful men who are probably very traumatized in various ways, having not done the inner work, not done the self-work, and they don't even necessarily know. They might be in a sort of zombie state, abusing women or men, and doing horrible things. So just, it's like, so we have to almost have, well, not even almost, we do have to have empathy for these horrible men.
Right.
But we also have to have empathy for all the men out there who might look like them, who are really not coming from that place at all, but maybe they're not as bold as the other guys, so they're even more afraid in this modern climate, social climate, to just approach girls, women, and even just like give them a nice touch on the shoulder. Like, it's hard out there right now. Like, guys are scared that even if they're attracted to a girl, to just say, hey, you look nice, touch the shoulder. Me too. Yeah. Oh, she's gonna think I'm a freak.
Yeah. That Me Too thing's gonna get slapped. I just had someone comment on one of my YouTube videos, and I was saying, listen, you gotta interject playful touches, little things like this to establish connection. And this guy he said, I'm in India. He said, if I were to do that, I would be labeled as part of the Me Too movement.
I just need to say, when I made that thing before about the touch, I did this in the air over here. I didn't go like this,
Right.
Because I was a little scared.
Right. No, go ahead. It's okay. Yeah. No, absolutely.
Yeah, it's real.
It's a sense of needing protection. Men are trying to protect themselves of, I don't want to become this Me Too person. Women who have been victims to this are like, I almost said the F word because I say that on my channel, but I'm fucking tired of being victimized, and goddamn it, this is my time to stand up for me. So you have two people, two sets of identity trying to protect themselves. But when you come from a place of fear, nobody wins. And fear is the opposite of love. And so
fear is a destroyer.
It's a total destroyer. And so really at the heart of this, it's like, well, what's the answer? What do we do? Validate those wounds. I'm not saying that we brush this under the rug, because true healing can only happen when the wound has been addressed, when we confront the wound, when we're able to expose the wound. It's just like if you get, a cut on your arm, if you expose it to oxygen, it heals. It's the same thing with our inner wounds. They have to be exposed. They have to be seen. The light has to touch those wounds, just like the oxygen and sun must hit those wounds. So I say all this to go, I had to look at my wounds. I had to go to therapists and coaches and say, this shit hurt. I am operating out of a dysfunction because of these wounds, but because I want to be responsible for me, I am here to confront those wounds. And I have had to go through paths, and I say paths with an S, of forgiveness, because sometimes forgiveness is that onion effect, and it comes off layer at a time.
That's diving into the shadow. And in response to all your journey, I would say #MeToo.
Yeah.
I've been through all of that myself. I've had more problems with men in my life than women in terms of just like dynamics of being around human beings and power struggles and being a victim myself and being hurt. So I've even realized through all of my healing, like how triggered I was all day long just being in a public place with a dude next to me, you know?
Yeah.
Not that he's gonna do anything, but just that presence in my psyche.
Yeah.
Well, another interesting idea with divine masculinity and toxic masculinity, you know, in a Western world that's still sort of seen as a man's world, but trying to, you know, back and forth, we want it to be everybody's world, yes? There's this branch, I would say, of toxic masculinity where it's almost like women want to be more masculine to succeed in this world, and there's this maybe idea that they have to be in order to be taken seriously.
Absolutely.
And I feel like part of this shift to being more empathetic towards divine masculinity, which entails being empathetic towards the abusers of the toxic masculinity, is that maybe there's some kind of shift. I think you would have a better voice to talk about this than I would, but how can women own their femininity more but still be empowered and succeed in the workplace, in society, and feel like they can still have that strong power voice and not just maybe camouflage into the masculine side more than they are naturally inclined to? Or does that make sense?
No, it makes perfect sense. And yes, we have had to do that. I have, in my mind, have had to do that. And in some cases, in some business scenarios, I have had to show up that way to survive, to provide for myself, because being feminine was not safe for me. But first and foremost, we have to address it back to the heart. Before we can address the practicality, we always have to go to the root. And the root is, at some point, we all have to lay down our swords and forgive, first and foremost. So when we hold on to this, men are against me, women are against me, this sort of mentality, it's a heart posture. I always say that the heart posture has to shift first.
Heart posture.
It's a heart posture.
Oh,
so you can change all the actions all you want, but if your heart posture hasn't shifted, then you're going to keep going back and repeating the same things over and over. So first and foremost, we have to make a heart change. We have to shift our hearts. And so when I hold unforgiveness towards men, and I'm angry at men, which I've had to go on that journey of being very angry at men and punching some fucking pillows and being like, fuck you, you shouldn't have done this to me, motherfucker.
Me too.
You know, I've had to let that raw anger come out, which is very healthy and okay. But essentially with forgiveness, it's like, you know, when we hold on to that unforgiveness and we say, that is my right, it is my right to hold on to unforgiveness. It's like me trying to give you poison. They say unforgiveness is like giving the other person poison, or drinking poison yourself, hoping that the other person dies. So when I hold on to unforgiveness, I am killing myself. I'm giving myself cancer. I am causing my immune system to break down. That's the power of holding on to unforgiveness. So I can't keep drinking this poison hoping it's going to hurt men. It's not going to hurt anybody but myself. So first and foremost, we have to shift our posture in terms of, this has been wrong, it's been unjust, let's call a spade a spade. It has not been a safe place for women. We've got that on the table. Now that I've been validated in that, I have to choose to forgive. And so from there, as a woman, I would say that it has to be practical. We have to start finding safe men that we can show up with our femininity. If I were to just tell women, like, just be feminine again and like go back to being soft, I feel like women need tangible experience. And so it's instead of looking for your enemies, go find out and find your friends. Find safe men that you can practice your femininity with and create that safe place for your femininity to come out and shine. But I would not say just go out and start exercising that in the workplace, because I don't think it's still 100% safe for women to do that.
Yeah, it's like a magnet for all the stuff, you know, like
Right.
it just attracts it. And I can say that even as a man, as we mentioned before, men have feminine qualities, women have masculine qualities, regardless of who you are, regardless of your orientation. And so me, I definitely have qualities like, you know, I have an older sister, like, you know, a very like, you know, mom kind of mom. Like my dad's not like a macho sports guy. So I was raised to be very okay and comfortable being, you know, in tune with my feminine side. And I am grateful for that. But I now realize because of that, didn't necessarily have like this innate raw masculinity that is my protective shield. And that would definitely allow and attract predators into the space of any person, I guess. So especially if you're a woman and you're only possibly going into that real feminine zone, because isn't the feminine more about being like an attraction magnet? And maybe masculine is more about being like, hey, how you doing?
Yeah, no, we're the receivers. I mean, the vagina is made to be penetrated by a penis. It's an open place. I mean, let's look at it from a literal sense. It's an open space to be received and penetrated from by a male. And so there's
the yoni and the lingam, if you're going Eastern philosophy.
Yeah. We are innate receivers, and guys are innate like pursuers.
So yeah, there's a balance that everybody can have about how they show up in the world, in their interactions, in the spaces that they're in. Maybe it's true, maybe we have to tune into the different sides of us at different levels when we're in specific rooms, places, and maybe over time it can change and get more balanced. But
Yes.
I think it could be very true that right now, like to be safe for yourself, to protect yourself, maybe to not change yourself, who you are in scenarios, but to be aware of like how far are you going to turn the lever of this part of your personality? Because that, you know, there's ways of turning up and down personality traits without changing who you are.
Totally. And I think we have to acknowledge the experiences that we're having, the good experiences. So when I, as a woman, when a man comes to me and he offers his masculinity, that I, at some point, have to trust and bring my shield down, despite my experiences, despite what happened with my father, despite what happened with my ex-husband. At some point, I'm going to have to lower the shield and receive his masculine love. So when a man on the street comes up to me and says, I have to tell you, you look so beautiful today, that me as a woman, that I can receive that compliment, I can receive that gesture of love and say, you know what, that took a lot of courage. Honor his masculinity and say, that took so much courage. Thank you, you just made my day. Thank you so much. And the same for a man, that when a woman shows up into his life and she shows him that femininity by acknowledging his strength, that he's able to receive that, as opposed to saying all women are bad, all women are out to get to me. But we have to start holding ourselves accountable for the interactions that we're having. Are we honoring those interactions? When the masculine does something good, am I stopping and receiving that? Am I honoring that? And vice versa, when a male has that experience, am I receiving that femininity that I crave, and am I honoring it?
Very interesting. And in those scenarios too, I guess the more like shadow toxic version would be a woman just instantly being like, oh, he's a creep, blah, 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 but he might literally have no intentions other than saying, hey, you look great. And then for a man too, I think the more shadowy toxic side would be like, oh, she's talking to me, or I'm gonna fuck her. But you know, maybe he can just be her friend or just take the compliment and move on, you know? That's important. I think the imbalanced anima, I remember from like the Carl Jung psychological philosophy, is that when a man is not in tune with his feminine side, that's when they could be more like viewing women as purely sexual objects, which has a lot to do with, you know, the pickup artist community goes too far in that sometimes. or all the time, or
All
most
the
of the time.
Yeah.
And that's why, someone like Xantharion is he's not a pickup artist, he's a romance artist. It's coming from a very balanced anima, meeting the feminine with the feminine from that divine masculinity.
Right.
Yeah.
I feel like I need to speak to people's hearts who have been wounded by toxic masculinity and by toxic femininity, and just speak to that. Okay. So I think it's really important that if you are a man and you feel very defeated, you feel let down by women and by what is going on in feminism right now, and you've taken it on yourself and you've let that become part of who you are, part of your identity of, I'm just this creep, I just can't win, I'm this, I'm that. I just want to say to you that I'm sorry. That I'm really sorry that is a message that you've received to your heart as a man, that you're a creep and that you're irreplaceable and that you're not worth anything and that women do not need you. And I want to say I'm really sorry. I'm sorry that our world has created that sense of insecurity, that sense of that lack of safety for you. But the truth is, despite the lie, the truth is that you are loved and that you are valued and that you are needed. And just every place in you that feels hurt by that and feel unwanted by that, I just want to remove that from your life and say that you indeed are lovable and that there indeed is a woman out there who is waiting to receive you, who is waiting to be loved by you. And I honor you. I honor you for your journey to become a whole, healthy, and healed man. And if there's any woman out there watching where masculinity has been unsafe for you and you've been a victim to toxic masculinity, that I say, I'm so sorry, baby girl. That was not your fault. That experience was not your fault, and you didn't ask for that. And I'm so sorry. And sweetheart, that there is a man out there who is safe, who is capable of loving you, who is capable of restoring all of those broken pieces in your heart that have been shattered through these experiences, and who will love every single piece of who you are.
You have a role. We all have a role. Yeah. Giving and receiving. Meeting in the middle.
Forgiving. We have to forgive each other.
Yeah. And own our wounds. It's a story at this point. Time is always now when you're alive and where you are. The wounds, the traumas, the past, it is the past. Sure, it's in your body. Your body holds on to this, but you can release it. It might take months, could take years, could take weeks, depends on how far along the healing journey you are. You could find somebody, depends what your approach is. It could be therapy, it could be more of a spiritual healing thing, it could be books, it could be YouTubers. Coaching.
Yep.
There's ways. It's like a wet rag or sponge, when the water, you can get that out, and then the sun will come in and it'll dry and it'll be literally 100% renewed. What is it? Every 7 years, the cells in our body are just completely renewed, right? Yeah. But if we keep these mind games of the past traumas playing over and over again, the new cells will still remember it, So if we dive deep into our shadow and do that work, you really can heal 100%.
And what I love about healing, the journey of healing, is there is that acknowledgement of, yes, this did happen to me, but there's also the sense of empowerment of, what am I going to do about it? Yes, that happened, but I refuse to allow that to define me. I refuse to allow that story continue to write the next chapters of my life.
And embody the new you. Maybe that person will always have a story. Maybe that story can be a very distant memory that doesn't even pop up in your mind for years at a time. That's what I'm doing right now. I'm really consciously, how can I embody, like, be and feel this renewed sense of self after my own healing journeys. And yes, it's plural, there's more than one. Yeah, day at a time, you know, feeling lighter, but also feeling like stronger, you know, more solid.
Absolutely.
And this is a pleasure for me because conversation like this is super healing. So yeah, I'm very grateful. Super appreciative of you taking the time and trust to meet with this man that you don't know, that reached out to you over the internet, because I found inspiration, you know. So that's great.
It's my pleasure. My pleasure.
Yeah, I want to thank you for being this voice that you are right now. This voice, what you say coming from this body, you know, like, and what that represents to the world right now, the things you say, like, coming from how you appear is very powerful. And I really believe in you, and that's why I'm here. And I really just want to say, like, the thoughts that I've been thinking, like, just, like, you know, following, I was like, she's got this, like, just, like, if this is the path, like, if she just continues on this, it's just going to really, 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 like, make sense and help many people. I believe it, I feel it, it's helped me tremendously, so, like, genuinely.
Thank you for that. You know, I've lived a lot of my life feeling rejected and unloved, and it breaks my heart that men out there feel so rejected. You know, I work with so many men, and if I could show the women the kind of men that I work with who have such a sincere heart, such pure hearts to be whole, to be healed, so that they can love a woman. It wrecks me. It wrecks me inside when I see these people comment on YouTube videos, and you can just feel the anger from them, and they just feel so unloved. They feel so lost, and like they're a villain in this story. It breaks my heart, and so it means a lot to me that you as a man, that you can feel that love and that strength, and that it resonates with you. That means the world to me. Thank you.
Hug?
Yes,
you
of
look
course.
Like you need one. Oh, this is amazing. I'm very glad to be here.
Oh,
yeah.
Thank you for suggesting this. This is absolutely beautiful. Yeah.
My pleasure. All right. Peace, love, and good chi.
Yeah. Be loved. You already are.
All right. Amazing.
Oh, good.
Good.